Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some pro-revenge stories and our first story of the day is by Philip Hamilton 19. Neighbor steals our dog, we take their kids. This happened when I was around 12 or 13, so the details might be a little skewed. Most of my childhood, the house right next to ours had been condemned and abandoned. The property owners were willing to sell the land for $200, that's how bad it was. My family didn't buy it because the land tax in our area is high because we are a school of choice. Eventually, someone bought it and threw a manufactured home on it to replace the condemned home. Soon, a nice old man moved in next door, and we didn't pay too close attention because he kept to himself. That was until his daughter moved in with him. Soon, our quiet little neighborhood turned into an episode of white trash and trouble. The daughter would fight with her spouse about every little thing and keep my family, along with our neighbors, up half the night. Their kids were the worst part of all. We never knew how many kids lived in that house because so many different children and adults were in and out of there all the time. Me and my siblings tried to become friends with them because there are not too many kids our age in the town. We ended up being more of their babysitters than just a friendly neighbor kid. They would come over to our house and each of my siblings had a group of kids, 3 to 4 each to watch over. These kids would walk in uninvited into our house, while we would play with their siblings in the yard, then steal toys and games from our rooms. Honestly, they stole stuff from all over our house, but this was the main areas. They would either take it for themselves or throw it in our backyard river. They did that a lot if we made them mad for taking back our stuff. They would constantly run in and out of our house, even if no one was with them. They would steal all of the fruit in the basket my mom left out for us. My mom didn't kick them out immediately because she never wanted to deny a kid food if they need it. My mom confronted the parents about their behavior, and their 3-year-old son called her a witch. The parents refused to apologize for their behavior, saying stuff like, "If you loved it so much, you wouldn't have let them take it," or "Don't parent my kid." One thing they would specifically do with me is they pulled on my hair all the time. I'm a tomboy, and they would just call me a boy in a wig because girls can't play with skateboards, girls can't play with ninja action figures, or any other gender stereotype. They would constantly bombard me because they truly didn't know girls were allowed to play with anything they wanted. One of their heavier children stole my skateboard and jumped on it, breaking it in half, similar to that "so no head" vine. Then they said I shouldn't have been playing with one anyway. There are plenty of more examples, but I think you get the point. The neighbors decided that because our house was nicer, that they had permission to run an electrical line from our backyard plugs to their house, which in itself is a bad thing, but they decided to run off our electric bill to triple the cost of our original. We were lower middle class / below poverty level, so we couldn't afford that kind of a bill. The rule in our house is if you're not using it, it's turned off. That's why my parents were awfully surprised to see an $800 electric bill. Eventually, a person from our electric company came to our house to see what was happening. They found an extension cord running to their house. The electrician simply unplugged it, then warned the neighbors of the legal reasons why they can't do that. Then said that should be the end of that problem. My mom politely but sternly went to the neighbors saying that this was not okay. The neighbor had a small adult tantrum about it and cussed my mom out, but eventually came back into her home. My mom was obviously not pleased with their behavior, but tried not to escalate the situation any further. Our neighbors tried 1 or 2 more times to run the line from our house to theirs. They would move it at night so we wouldn't see them move it. Each time when we unplugged it, they would cuss us out and send their kids over to destroy something else in our home. Eventually, mom straight up told them if they or their kids come on our property again, she will call the police and press charges. We could still be friends with their kids, but they weren't allowed on our land. They decided that because we won't let them use our electricity, that the next best option was to steal our dog from the backyard and claim our dog attacked her kids. Even though our dog was harmless and cowers at everything due to bad owners before us. I'm guessing because our dog liked to rip her tags off a lot that the neighbors said she was a stray that attacked them. The pound came and took our puppo away. By the time my brothers and I got home, she was already gone. We just assumed she ran off to our grandmother's who lived down the street. She would do this often because my grandma spoils her. When my parents came home, they about lost it, learning our dog was missing. We obviously looked for her but couldn't find her. After 2 days, we found her at the dog pound. The officer said it was obvious that our dog didn't hurt their kids, but they still had to take her in for an evaluation. My parents had to spend $200 to get her out. The pound told us why the dog was taken, and my mom said enough was enough. Now the revenge. When my mom got home, she sent my little brother over to their house to play with their kids. He was still friends with some of them at the time. My brother became a little spy that day. His job was to look around their house and report anything that could be suspicious. We learned from him that they were sitting 3 kids to a twin bed. The entire house was cramped and dirty. The old man that lived there was hardly home because he couldn't stand his adult daughter that lived there, but he didn't want to evict her from the home and leave his grandkids homeless. All around, the kids were being neglected. With the information my brother gathered, my mom called CPS, Child Protective Services, on the home. Within the month, all of the children minus 1, who the old man cared for, were removed from the home. While I agree the foster system is bad, it was definitely better than what they were going through in that house. The mother of the children started to fight with the old man, her father, on everything. Because her kids were no longer there as a distraction, the old man was to be her next victim. The old man was eventually fed up with her and kicked her out of the home. All that was left in the home was the old man and the grandson he was fostering. They are both very kind and amazing neighbors. So if you found out that a neighbor was leeching electricity off of your own bill and running you up maybe double or triple the actual amount, would you personally have any second thought about calling the cops on them, considering they have all those kids and it would lead to surely a lot of turmoil for them? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Helen, a handbasket. My house, my rules. This happened years ago when my kids were preschool age. My mother-in-law, fortunately now ex-mother-in-law, never liked me much. She was always very critical of me and how I parented my kids. My daughter, about age 6, was one of those kids whose hair grew very slowly, and she had been trying for more than a year to grow her hair out long. Her bangs were at that weird stage where they're both too long and too short. I had bought a bunch of fun little clips and hairbands for her to keep them back during this stage of growth, so her hair wasn't untidy in any way. Well, one weekend, my mother-in-law decided to take my 6-year-old daughter for a few hours. This was fine, something that occasionally happened. When she brought my daughter back, her beautiful hair she'd worked on so long was cut extremely short, like Tinkerbell short. My daughter was obviously distressed and in tears. I said, "What the freak did you do?" to my mother-in-law, and she shrugged and said she was tired of my daughter's hair hanging in her face, and that in her house, little girls had to have tidy hair or it gets cut off. I was so angry, I told her to get out. Then I comforted my daughter and told her she was beautiful no matter what, that nobody had the right to tell her how her hair should be or cut it without her permission, and that I'd make sure it never happened again. Skip forward a few months, mother-in-law had a couple of show cats, the real fluffy ones with flat faces. Himalayan? She doted on those wheezing furballs. Thing is, she booked a cruise and needed someone to take care of them, so she brings them to my place to cat sit while she's gone. Enter the petty revenge. The day she was supposed to return and pick them up, I shaved both of them to look like tiny lions. When she saw them, she exploded and started screaming at me, asking why I would do such a thing. I said, "In my house, cats need to have tidy hair or it gets cut off." She never touched my kid's hair again. That's definitely a very satisfying revenge. Honestly, if I was the dad doing this revenge, I'd probably let the daughter have a little fun too and bring them in to let them shave the cats a little bit. Let the mother-in-law know that, yeah, me and my daughter were so happy to do it. This next story is by Sky Blue Corgi 17, No Black-Eyed Peas for Karens. So I live in the South, Texas specifically, and down here there's a tradition that every good Southern home makes and eats black-eyed peas for New Year's. It's supposed to bring good luck in the coming year. I'm not crazy superstitious, but I'm not taking any chances with 2021. Well, being the organized human I am, I left this until the last minute and only remembered when my boyfriend asked if I'd picked up some peas on my last grocery run. So I bolt out the door and head for the nearest grocery store. I went to 4 stores looking for these little jerks. By the time I get to the last store, I'm ready to take anything. Frozen, canned, pre-made, whatever. Or call it quits. I decide to check the aisle with dried beans first, in the slim hope I could find the real deal. And as I round the corner for the aisle, I can see a lady has cornered some poor stock boy and has his back against the wall of beans. She's full on wagging her finger in his face and ripping into him. "What do you mean you don't have any black-eyed peas? I saw you restocking these shelves with beans and need them for tonight. Don't you understand tradition?" The employee says, "Ma'am, I don't think we have any left. If they aren't in the display case, then we're probably out. But we do have canned and frozen." "No, I don't want canned or frozen. I need real black-eyed peas." She continues to ream out this poor kid as I walk to the other side of them and to the shelf where the black-eyed peas are usually stored. Call it a hunch or a blind hope, but I crouched down to look all the way in the back, and sure enough, there were 2 bags left tucked away in the shadows. I fished them out with a little difficulty, yay for having short arms, and by the time I got them out, Karen had taken notice. When she saw me pull out the peas, she gasped, literally gasped like I had unmasked the villain in a Scooby-Doo cartoon. "So you do have black-eyed peas. You lied to me. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, young man. Excuse me, miss, one of those bags is mine." She then holds out one hand and curls her fingers in a fork 'em over motion. Now I could have given her the bag. I only needed one, but darn it, I used to work retail and I can tell you that poor employee was not paid enough to deal with her attitude. Especially not this year. So I put on my best smile and said, "Sorry ma'am, I need these for my own New Year's Eve. Tradition, you know," and plopped them into my basket. She had a fit, called me a selfish millennial brat with no respect for her elders, and asked, what was her family supposed to do now? I kept my head held high, squashed down my inner anxious people-pleasing side of me, and headed for the register. I'm now doing a quick soak of the beans and drinking a celebratory mimosa. Enjoy your unlucky 2021, Karen. So I've never heard of this black-eyed peas tradition thing, but I would say that the Karen deserves every ounce of what she had coming. I get that you're in a pinch, you're stressed, you want to get some black-eyed peas. Doesn't mean you can act like a total jerk to somebody and corner them against the wall and rip into them like that. Our next story is by Modern Spoon. So you in a park where you shouldn't? Not my story, but the other day my brother went to the shop with his baby. The supermarket where he lives has very few parking spots for parents with children. If you're not familiar, those spots have some extra spaces for taking out prams and getting little ones out of a car. As he was getting his baby out, a guy with no kid decided to park his SUV across 2 of these spots. My brother challenged him about it. He had taken the last 2 spots on a busy day. The guy ignored him and got in the supermarket, clearly in a rush. So my brother took a picture of that guy's car and showed it to someone in reception. Straight away, they made an announcement for that guy to go park elsewhere, and my brother got to see that inconsiderate person walking out fuming, car keys in hand, with no shopping. Hope it will teach him a lesson. I'm not perfect and I definitely don't do everything that I should do, but when it comes to grocery stores and parking lot etiquette, I'm usually pretty on top of that stuff. I'm the kind of person that always puts the shopping carts back, and when I've gone as a passenger with my mom before in the past, and I see her park in spaces that she has no right to park in, I'm never the one afraid of calling her out on it. Just do the small thing and do right by people. And our final story of the day is by Guzzy Owner. Do you canoe? My 7th grade buddy and I used to scrounge around the lake for stuff washed up after storms, and one day, we found a canoe. A 15-foot Grumman aluminum canoe in perfect shape except for a small seam leak. We never locked it up, just pulled it up on the shore. We used it for 2 summers, and although the leak got progressively worse, we kept a Clorox bottle for bailing and scrounged a huge chunk of styrofoam for the center to make it unsinkable. One day, a car pulled up and an angry man got out with his wife. He pointed at the canoe and accused us of stealing it. We told him the truth. It washed up after a storm 2 years ago. He pointed at a big house all the way across the lake and said it was his and he was taking it. We were kids, so we shrugged our shoulders, took our paddles, the Clorox bottle, and the styrofoam block out of the canoe, and sat down to watch the show. Mr. Man pulled a paddle out of his trunk and the wife took off for home. He made it about halfway across the lake before it swamped and he had to swim for it. I hope his watch was waterproof. If someone loses a canoe on a lake, I'm sure they're going to circle the perimeter and check around way sooner than within 2 years. If that was truly his canoe, he deserved that for not giving a crap about it for the last 2 years. It wasn't like it was impossibly lost. He just didn't do enough work looking for it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.